Dane, no.
Okay. Welcome back to the From the Fabricator podcast. I'm your host, Max Pearlstein. Thank you so much for joining me again this month. Good pod ahead. I'll talk about that in a second. But before I get into that, this podcast is brought to you by the myglassclass.com and the brand new myglassfab.com. These are the ultimate destinations for glass and glazier training and for the fabricator training. myglassfab.com, brand new. So you can go check that out. You can also always check out myglassclass.com. They're both online 24/7, chance to train your folks. Lots of courses vetted by the National Glass Association, so you know it is legit. Check it out today, myglassclass.com and the brand new myglassfab.com. Okay, we're coming off of Glass Build America. What a show. What else can I say? It was tremendous. Energy was tremendous. The vibe was tremendous. Obviously, some worries with regards to what Connor Lokar talked about with some of the challenges ahead. I don't think it's a surprise. I think people needed to hear it. We all have to plan for it. We all have to stay resilient, and we all have to continue to hustle, communicate. And there's no free lunches in our world, that's for sure. So that's all coming up, in the future, and we will all keep rolling with it. But good stuff from Connor. Great show. Sorry if I missed you there. Sorry if I didn't mention you on my blog. I mentioned a bunch, but I ran into so many people. It was just such an awesome experience. So proud and happy to be a part of this industry. All right. So on this month's podcast, really, really excited to have Dan and Nico Pompeo from Architectural Glazing Solutions, some of the best reps this industry has ever seen, and great people. And we learn about sweep aggressively. Love that. And then I have Ron Parker, who was on the show way back in 2021 as a consultant. Now he has settled. He is an owner and CEO of Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions, and we covered a bunch of things, really important things, and Ron's always insightful. So those are our guests this month, and we'll kick it off with Dan and Nico and Ron on the backside, and I'll see you after that. Okay. Next up on the podcast, the From the Fabricator podcast, an old friend with his son, who's a new friend now for me, Dan and Nico Pompeo, the owners of Architectural Glazing Solutions out on the West Coast. Find them online at ags-ca.com. They are super manufacturers reps, the best around. Dan, Nico, thanks so much for doing the podcast.
Thanks, Max. We appreciate the time. Looking forward to it.
That's a very nice introduction. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, Dan, you and I go way back, and Nico, you and I are just getting to know each other, and we're going to start a little bit about your past. But the one thing I will say is that Dan has always been one of these clutch guys in my life. You know, when we needed people at Glassville, Dan was first in line. You know, when we needed somebody to help out with anything, Dan was always raising his hand, and so I'm always grateful for you, Dan, for what you've done for the industry, and you represent some of the best companies in the industry, which is very cool. So thank you for that, Dan.
We feel the same about you, Max, and your entire family. You've got a rich history yourself.
No doubt. Well, I appreciate that. So let's start with you. You just don't land into a situation like you have. It's taken a lot of hard work, but I'd love to know how did you get into this crazy, wacky glass industry, and now years later, running Architectural Glazing Solutions with your family?
Well, I was a bricklayer by trade, and I had my heart set on I'm going to work in the field. That's what I wanted to do, and I enjoyed the work. But shortly after a couple of years with this young man and a young family, my wife got pregnant with the twins.
Right.
And said, honey, you got to get a real job with benefits. And not those exact words. She was pretty direct. And
okay.
You know, Stacy.
Yep.
So I started my journey in looking. I was not looking at the glass industry at the time. I was working part-time for her dad at Tech Glass, who was a partner of two other individuals that own that company. I don't know if you remember that.
A little bit.
Small Fabricator.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and Ken ended up selling the business to Fabricated Glass, Harvey Holtz.
Mm-hmm.
And a position was open up to me to become the plant manager.
Okay.
And I reluctantly said, I'll give it a try. Because I wasn't set on working indoors, and same place every day. But a lot of good things happened from that point forward.
And before you go on, I never knew you were a plant manager. I thought you were sales from day one because you're so friggin' good at it. That's got me completely thrown that you were on a plant floor running a plant.
Yeah, 9 years. I manage, but really I can't take all the credit because I had a good team. I think I'm a better salesman than I was plant manager, although I'm glad I had that experience because I learned a lot
Yeah. Yeah.
of,
That makes it,
of the back end.
that makes a difference. When when you know how the plant runs and you respect how the plant runs, you're a better salesperson.
Right.
There's no question. When you have that respect for how hard it is to produce, especially in the fabricated side. So how did you get into sales? How did you, how did you get to this part of the world?
Well, Stacy was doing sales for her father, and then when Fabricated Glass came in and bought us, Stacy and I had made a decision with the twins on their way. She wanted to be more stay-home mom and work very limited when she could and help out with accounting. But she was doing sales for Tech Glass, and she was going to continue to stay on. But this is where the sales part came in. I had to talk my way into allowing. I went to Harvey, flew up to Talent, Oregon, and met with him and his wife, Charlene, and convinced him that I could do roles. I could be a 1099 independent rep because we did need business at the time, Fabricated Glass Specialties in Escondido.
Right.
And so I dual purposed that role for about 7 years. And there was some challenges put ahead of me, and I had to double the sales in 6 months. We ended up doing a little bit better than that. And I just 1099 independent rep, basically for commission only, and then had a salary with some benefits that I needed for the family.
Fantastic. I've known you for all these years. I never knew that about you. Never knew that you started on the floor. And, because when I got to meet you, you were already, well established as an independent manufacturer's rep. I mean, you're the guy. So that's kind of wild. I didn't know you then.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It really, the true independence started with Randy when Randy came calling and looking to bring me on as a salesperson. I think at the time they were probably thinking as an employee in San Diego. At that point, I went to my father-in-law, who was the general manager of all Fabricated Glass, living up in Oregon, and we had a plant at that time in Fairfield, California, Northern Cal plant. And I told him about the situation. I said, I have an idea. I think Harvey's probably not long in the tooth for the Escondido facility. We're not going to put a tempering oven here, blah, blah, blah. What do you think about maybe selling this division? And he sold that upstream to Harvey, and the rest was history. Randy ended up buying Fabricated Glass Escondido. Mm-hmm. And he had the crew, which was really important to me, because without that crew, my word and my sales part of it, I felt, was only half the battle. So
sure. And by Randy,
I bought my independence at that point as a commissionable rep, but I said, you got to pay me on a salary until I can meet a certain quota to make up for the 2 checks that I'd be missing out.
Sure. And by Randy, that's Randy Steinberg, owner of Glassworks, kind of the West Coast king and dominant out there, and a good friend, and just one of the greatest entrepreneurs our industry's ever seen. And so obviously it fits well with you. Now, Nico, you being into the family, how did you get your dad to pull you into this? Now, were you guilted like I was by my brother and my dad, or did you have it in your blood? Like my brother had it in his blood. My brother from 2 years old, he drew pictures. I want to be a glass jobber. He loved it. I didn't want to do it. I had nothing to do with it. Eventually he connived me, guilted me, gave me the puppy dog eyes. What was it for you? How did you get into this wild world?
Well, I mean, it wasn't my first choice. Obviously, I wanted to be a professional baseball player and play in the major leagues like we all do, Sure. But we tried that out, went to school, had some fun, maybe too much fun. But I think in the back of my mind, I kind of knew where I was coming back to when all else failed. Growing up at Fabricated Glass and becoming Glassworks, and, doing odd jobs in the office with my mom, walking around the shop with my dad, getting to know all the guys in the back and seeing how the, fabrication process takes place and what goes into all of that. It was kind of ingrained into me, I guess. So I knew where I was coming eventually. And, it's funny. I never never saw myself as a salesperson per se, just because
that makes 2 of us.
Yeah. I don't consider myself a very outspoken person or forward, type of salesperson, but at the same time, I think people would maybe say the opposite about me. Once you get me talking, it's hard to get me to stop.
Gotcha.
Anyone who's hung out with me at a glass build show knows that. So, that's part of what I learned, just, the relationship building, watching this guy over the years and going on sales calls with him. He used to take me on the road as a kid, and we'd sit in customers' offices, and still to this day, I go in when I'm making calls and I'll see the old fabricated glass samples sitting on their desk from 25 years ago. And it's just, it's come full circle for me, really. Growing up in that shop and seeing what it's become now, it's pretty crazy with what you were saying about Glassworks and how big they've become on the West Coast over the last, 10 years or so.
It's amazing.
It truly is. It truly is. Well, good. It's good to have it's good to have you in the industry, Nico. We need the young blood, and you've got that, and I think that's important. And you got the great bloodlines too from your dad and mom, who are tremendous people. And so let's talk a little bit about architectural glazing solutions. ags-ca.com online. What's the keys here for you guys? What's the what's the main things you guys represent and do out in the West?
Well, for us, I mean, I've been doing this now with the group for 10 years, and we've had different product lines and companies run their courses, and a few that have really, been a cornerstone for AGS. So, up till this point, and through the last 3 years of COVID, we've really seen our business model kind of transform into something where we're chasing a lot of private jobs and mixed use projects with our railing, which leads us into projects very early on, which we find as an advantage, where we get to meet with the owner developer, sometimes the GC who's got the project, and they've got funding, the architect who's drawn the project. And those are the relationships that we like to, build up, where we have these people, these customers who trust working with us. They know we're gonna do what we say we're gonna do, and that's one thing that's always hung with me, learning that from my dad. Do what you say you're gonna do, even if it's not what the customer wants to hear in that moment. Be forward with them, and be a source that they can trust, and that's really what it's become. Is we've become a source for answers in this glazing and architectural metals world, where things aren't detailed correctly. With railing in general, it's one of our biggest product lines, and for whatever reason, the details aren't really figured out on that scope a lot of the times. And that's where we like to jump in. That's a perfect spot for us to kind of share our knowledge and help get the project going out of the gates. As far as our scope is concerned, we're a small piece of these big high-rise buildings, but it's front and center a lot of the times with the railing and the glass. It's one of the first things you see when you walk up to the building. So, it's great for us to, go downtown now and see the skyline just building up, downtown in San Diego. It's really incredible to watch. And the growth that we've seen over the last 10 years it's been wild.
It's rewarding to see.
It is. Yeah. You get to see what you've done right there front and center every time you go downtown. So it's fun.
You guys represent like the whole range. I mean, you have something for everybody, and San Diego's the greatest. So it's a perfect combination of you guys have everything to offer, and you're in one of the greatest cities in America.
It's pretty cool there. The weather's perfect. I just read that it's the most expensive city in America now, which surprised me. So, yeah.
That surprised me too, considering how much it cost in New York. I mean, I think
I know.
And plus, you've got the Boston roots, and it's not cheap in Massachusetts either. So I'm surprised, but San Diego is awesome. Yeah,
absolutely. Like what you said there, just having what people need, and kind of aligning our product line and manufacturers to kind of be the one-stop shop. That's what we always kind of wanted to be, but
we've simplified it.
We've tried to simplify over the years and do what we're real good at.
Thanks to him. I listened. We had too much going on, and I talked to other independent reps, obviously, that were mentors to me, and a lot of them would say, you don't want to get caught up in having too many product lines. it's too overwhelming, and focus on what you're good at. And yeah, over the years, it's kind of simplified. Really, our focus is fire rated glazing and framing,
Right.
obviously wholesale glass,
Right.
mostly on the architectural side, commercial glazers, which has been great, because when you and I got together at the old United Glass merger, Glassworks was really not known to be a supplier to the contract glazing. We were a residential supplier.
Correct.
Major changes have taken place since then.
Correct. Yeah, the growth there is amazing. And so, people who want to see everything that Dan and Nico have going on, and Stacy too, who's not on here with us, architectural
let's
glazing.
Not forget about her.
Yeah.
She's vital. I wish she was here.
I don't forget about her at all, and I know she's holding down the fort, because she always is. All right, so but Architectural Glazing Solutions, find them online, ags-ca.com, for all the info and who they cover. And so it's Dan, Stacy, Nico, the team, everybody really doing well. And one of the things, Dan, that I wanted to bring up was the California Glass Association. It finally launched. It's come back. It was a big piece of our world for a long time, and then disappeared. And then a few years ago, you said, I really want this to come back. We need something like this. And you were one of the first people to really bang that drum, that got picked up. And now it's a chapter of the NGA, the California Glass Association. You've got to be pretty darn proud. I mean, this was one of the things that you made your kind of mantra when nobody else was singing that tune. So how do you feel about that? That's got to make you feel pretty good.
I feel good, but you're giving me too much credit. Christy really, she did the hard work, and we owe it all to her. And we're in the infancy stages, but you are right. We're now officially a member. We just had a meeting last week up at Tim's place, Leinhardt, and I got to know him at Glazing Concepts.
Yep.
We're getting to get to go golfing. These are the reasons why we need this, because there was a misnomer out there that you should be not friendly with certain, no, I think you keep the network tight.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value to having the glazers communicate in a way that we can be a better, more informed industry and train the younger people.
Yeah.
Like this guy, because we need these guys to carry on the torch.
It's all about that community, and building it up, and making the culture overall. We all talk about culture of the companies. We need to keep talking about the culture of the industry. It's a great industry, and things like the California Glass Association. Christy Rayberg is fantastic. She was on my podcast along with Nathan and Adam, when things were getting launched. But I wanted to give you your proper credit, because you were the first one to come to me and say, hey, what do we got to do?
I'm a cheerleader for sure, because that's how I was brought up in the industry. Great memories, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so I want to make sure
your help too.
Yeah, well, I want to make sure you get your props. You've brought a lot to the table, and you've played some hidden roles, and that's why I like having this podcast with you, because I got to do a one-on-one interview with Randy Steinberg, and that was because of you. You're the one who pulled it all together, and again, you didn't take any credit for it, and you deserved all the credit for it. And so
our guy to get to know. So I was proud of that one, because that took some work, and I thought you did an amazing job with that.
Thank you, and that was incredible to be able to talk to him. He's unreal. But thank you to you. So that brings me to the next question for both of you, and I'm really curious, especially with Nico, because he's sitting right next to you. But I'll start with you, Dan. Your mentors. Who are they? Who were they? And why? Tell me about your mentors. That's my fun question.
Try to be quick, because there's a few of them. But I didn't get to know my dad till I was about 15. But as I got to know my father, he taught me the meaning of sweeping a broom aggressively. And I say that my son knows it, but it's an ongoing joke. He would constantly tell me, as I was working for him part-time in high school in the summers, hey, if you're standing around doing nothing, there's something wrong. Grab that broom and sweep aggressively. And I think that stuck with me. And, he was a plumbing HVAC contractor. He always did a clean, organized job. And he taught me some value there. So one of the things that I remember about my dad is I would have to get up every Saturday, no matter what condition I happened to be in high school, and you have to clean out the garage. And if plumbers, they have a lot of stuff. So that now today I keep my garage spotless, and I owe that a lot to him. But Harvey Holtz is another gentleman that was instrumental in taking time with me to teach me the value in understanding the basics of a profit and loss statement, and how important it is to pay attention to that and what inventory means. And, I'm not just a sales guy that wants to sell at the bottom line due to people like Harvey. He taught me a lot there.
Nice.
It also taught me when talking to a customer, emphasizing there's no reason to embellish what happened with today's delivery. Don't tell them that the tires out on the truck. Tell them the truth. Your driver didn't show up today. This is an ongoing issue. And, people relate more to those things. Ken Pym, my father-in-law, Stacy's dad, who's a guy that encouraged me to stay and give the industry a shot. I owe him an awful lot, not only in my business life, but also personally. He showed me how to become the man that I hope to continue to be as a father. And there was a few others. Steve Tortomasi, a client at the time. He's owner of Glass Plaques. They do glass trophies.
Right.
He taught me the art of negotiating and how to do a fair deal, and compromise, but most importantly, emphasize it. Always do what you say you're going to do.
Gotcha.
People like that have been really instrumental. And of course, Randy, in a silent way, just being able to watch him for 30 plus years is just mind boggling. And to think when he's not paying attention, to know that he is, that's the amazing part.
Yeah. Randy doesn't miss anything. Doesn't miss anything, never has, never will. Just a truly amazing human. So Nico, pressure on mentors. I mean, do you have to say, you don't have to say your dad, but
I can't wait to hear these answers. It doesn't, I've never asked him these questions.
This is a tough one for you. You're sitting right next to him.
No, I mean, gosh, if I wouldn't be here doing this if it wasn't for my dad, and my mom. They've both been in the industry as long as I can remember. And like growing up in the glass fabrication facility was, I mean, it's something you tell your friends at school when you're a kid, and nobody ever thinks about where the glass is made. You know what I mean? Right. But it's everywhere. And that's one thing I kept reminding myself of. There's glass on every single building they build. And I was always thankful that my dad was able to coach me growing up, and kind of have an open schedule where he was able to do things like that. And so I knew that it was a career that I could see myself doing in the future. But, obviously he's my biggest mentor. Just, we're laughing. We're both laughing.
Oh, smiling, dude. I don't want to get emotional here.
Yeah.
We tend to butt heads. We have opposite personalities, but we are also the same in a lot of ways, where we tend to butt heads a little bit and not give each other the props that we probably want to say at the time. But later on, once we've decompressed, he's probably loving to hear this right now. But yeah, I mean, you're probably my biggest mentor for sure. Just watching you and picking up things, even though you may not think that I'm picking up things, I think that I do.
I love it.
And I've learned a lot from you and how to work with people and get the information you want. Wow. which is nice.
You made my day. You made my week. You made my month.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 10 years in now, and every day I'm learning something new pretty much at this point. And so I try to treat everyone I come in contact with as a potential mentor, and so
smart.
One that really comes to mind that I really enjoy my time with and everything that I've learned from him is Paul Zen, the owner of East West and Loomcraft.
That's another one that I wanted to add.
Good guy.
He's just, he's the type of guy that he has the same type of attitude as us. And we do what we say we're going to do, and we do it right, hopefully. Yeah. And so I've learned, a lot from him on the railing industry, how to get things done the right way there, how to detail railing properly, and the types of things you need to know to be good in that industry. And I mean, I've never told anybody any of these things, but yeah, Paul is definitely somebody that I look up to in the industry.
I love it.
I love it. So I mean, he's probably one of my biggest right now. I mean, like I said, his sister Louisa, I learn stuff from her all the time. She's the one that handles our bidding and project managing and almost everything up there. She's a superhero. So those are the types of people that I look up to in the industry, people that have been doing it for a long time and know what they're talking about. And to be a trusted resource is something that I want to pride myself on.
Max, I'd like to mention one thing with Paul Zen, because I think it's important. You know,
Sure.
we're doing independence, but one of the key things that Paul Zen taught me, and I started my business with him in 2009, and for me, it'll be a lifetime deal, and hopefully my son.
Yeah.
They're that kind of people, but he taught me the meaning of a handshake deal that actually means something.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And in my industry, you can be in a situation where there's a disagreement between a manufacturer and a rep, and parting the ways could be ugly. But I've been pretty fortunate not to have too much trouble in that area. Paul Zen reinforced that principle that I grew up with, that you could shake a person's hand and have a deal. But he also taught me something really important. You'll probably get a kick out of this, but as a salesperson, you understand the meaning to be able to say no to someone too.
Yeah.
When the time, happens. And that's something Paul Zen taught me. And I was probably in my early 40s at the time. So
yeah, that's a tough one.
Good lesson. There's power in no sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
No doubt. And I loved, what Nico said about continuing to learn from people, because that's a tough one. You're in it 10 years and a lot of people feel like they know everything by 10 years in. And I love the fact that you're saying, yeah, I'm learning every day. And I think that's crucial. You have to keep doing that. This is great. I'm with Dan and Nico Pompeo, Architectural Glazing Solutions. Catch them online at ags-ca.com. Super manufacturers reps, one of the best groups around, class acts. So let's talk a little bit. What's hot out there for you guys right now? What are you seeing? I mean, obviously the railings are just smoking hot. But that, and what else? And what else is cooking out there for you guys?
Obviously the railing is just blown up for us. I mean, it's been consistent. We've been very lucky through the last 3 years of COVID. I mean, that's like its own era in itself, for everyone. But
what do you see new though? Like, we're getting some.
It's funny that, I mean,
it's a good question, because
the one thing that I keep noticing is just the jobs just keep getting bigger and more pronounced, really. Wow. is what I keep saying. I mean, we're doing one right now with Mortensen McCarthy joint venture down in Chula Vista Gaylord Convention Center and Hotel, and it's kind of outside the typical railing job for us. We're looking at mixed use, private work, apartments, condos, stuff like that. And this came around, and I'm like, this is the type of job that we really want to be a part of. Something that's a monumental type job that people are going to be aware of. And that job's about 50% up right now. We're getting ready to start putting some railing ins there. So it's going to be real exciting to see a job like that go up and have that one completed in the next year or two here. But yeah, I mean, even with,
he sold that job.
Love it.
On his own.
Way to go.
It's funny, that's because, he's very technical, and the younger crew over there, the buyout team, I could tell was not going to take the Boston aggressive, hey, is it time to give me the contract approach? Although that's tamed a lot in my older years. I do like being aggressive because that's in my DNA. Okay. Yeah. But Nico, I felt, was the man that needed to handle this crew, and I thought he did a seamless job of it.
Yeah, well, technical, I've said it before on this podcast that technical sales has become, it's just crucial. And especially you guys had said it before about the resource. You want to be, known as a resource, and that goes hand in hand. I mean, when you can get technical and be that resource, people start to really trust you, because trust is everything. Friendship gets your feet in the door. Friendship keeps the progress alive, but it's that ability to give answers and direction and dig into things, with your customer that makes a difference. So I could see how that works, and especially on a project like that. Exciting.
I mean, it's a little good cop, bad cop at times. It's got one angle, and which is, we do need that angle too a lot of the times, because there are certain customers that relate better with him and his personality versus my personality, and so it's a good combo, and we're learning to tailor it every day with how we approach customers, and who wants to deal with the old man and who wants to deal with me. But
old man.
I'm getting old too. I just turned 34, Max. So,
you don't look it.
Yeah. So, but it's like you said, the technical side, especially with railing and how it's not detailed a lot of the times when it comes out, just helping the GC architect developer figure that scope out and get it going in the right direction. And that's really how I approached that Gaylord project. It's, the biggest job we've ever sold, really. As far as, the spotlight on it, I would say downtown there, and just giving that whole group that was working on there's 2 GCs working the job. There's a big architect from out of state working it, and having the ability to kind of guide them into a direction where
design assist.
We were gonna get that job. That was drawn as stainless steel on that project, to be honest with everybody. And I just knew on a job that big, it probably wouldn't end up going that route. And I knew that we could do something very close and mimic that look in aluminum. So we presented some other projects that we had done with the kind of, frameless front glazed aluminum railing system in a shiny metallic finish to kind of give it that upper class stainless vibe without the stainless price tag. And it really caught on quickly, and it turned into a project for us, and we're very excited to be a part of that one.
Can't wait.
Value engineered. That word, that's what I hear a lot in the last 3 years. Value engineered.
Somebody's going to do it.
Yeah. So, well, and you found a way to work around it. You found a way to get your product on there, and it sounds like it's fantastic. Can't wait to see that. So I love it. I love it. This is cool. I know you guys are busy. A couple more questions before I let you go. The one I was really curious about, and before we started, Nico said he gets to handle this one, but Dan, I still am going to ask you about it. But Nico,
go ahead, bud.
Family business. I grew up in a family business. I know how hard it is. Now, what's interesting is that your mom is in the business. See, my mom wasn't in the business. And so, at first I wasn't in the business. I think I've told the story on the podcast before that, my brother and my sister and my dad were all in the business, and I was much younger, and my mom wasn't in the business. And my brother and my sister and my dad, would have some healthy conversations at dinner. They were not great, because they were all in different parts of the world. And my mom would usually speak up and go, "Well, how's the weather?" Just trying to change the subject desperately.
Yes.
And I was sitting there going, I can't wait till dinner's over. I just want to keep eating and get away from these people. I don't want to be in this business. This is nuts. Somehow or another, I ended up in it. And I know how tough it is turning it on and off, and now you've got families and so on and so forth. So Nico, how, you've been in it 10 years. How is it working with mom and dad? I mean, that's gotta be, there's some challenges there. And you said that you run into some things. How's it been for you? And how do you roll through it?
I mean, thank goodness for my mom. She really is probably the one that's kept it together this long, because of him and I, butt heads from time to time on certain things. And we just know at the end of the day that we all have the common goal. And there's nowhere for us to go. What are we doing here? We've been doing this for so long. I was born into this industry. It's ingrained into us at this point. So we just know at the end of the day, as much as we want to, yell or get into disagreements with each other, that at the end of the day, we're all in it together, no matter what. And, we do carry it over. It's funny. We always go on vacations together and start talking work once we've had a couple drinks. And
you and your mom do. Yeah, I'm the one that backs out.
He tries to turn it off, and it's funny because he's the more outgoing, like, forward person in our three, because me and my mom are probably more quiet until we get going, and then you can't shut us up. It's funny. My sisters, they get so upset, that we're talking work every time we go out on vacation.
They ask about the weather.
But
there you go.
But it's hard, we wake up and it's glass, and we go to bed and it's glass, and it's always been that way. So it's hard to turn it off, but that's the part about it. It's like, it's the easiest thing in the world, but it's also the hardest thing in the world, working with your family, because, you just,
it's there.
You always have somebody that you can, when you're feeling a certain way about a job, the other person's probably feeling the same way too. And, you always have somebody that you can go to and decompress and clear the air, and you don't have to keep carrying it on. You don't have to have an awkward, work relationship with some coworker. This is my family, and so, we get past these disagreements and move on fairly quickly, which is always great.
Yeah. It's something we all live with. And curious, Dan, how's it been? You get Nico in the business. I can't believe it's been 10 years. This is wild.
I know. Max, everything has come full circle. I spent the first 6 years thinking I had to make him into me as a salesperson, because that was the only success path that I knew as a salesperson. And as we stated earlier, I never really considered myself a salesperson. So, the aggressive nature of asking for orders and being outgoing like that, I thought would be the only way he could do it. About 4 years ago, I came to terms, based on feedback that I would receive from customers, that we enjoy working with Nico, and this is why. And they would express his knowledge and his ability to still care like mom and dad, but it's a different passion. And so I think, like Nico said, we all complement each other well. It's been relieving as a father with a son to know that not only is he a guy that can take my business over, and he could have a business of his own, what he can make of what he wants. You're limitless of where you could go with this. He's also a dad, and he's made me very proud as a grandfather. So personally and professionally, I can die in peace.
I've seen the pictures on Facebook. It's I've seen it's a boy. It's a grandson,
great,
right?
Anthony,
great looking kid. Yeah, absolutely. So you've done very well, Nico. Very well.
After his mother.
There you go. And I would be remiss. I have to mention that, of the twin girls, your daughter Allie is one of my all-time heroes. She designed the logo for this podcast. And she's done some work with me. She's one of the most talented humans around. I wish we could get her in the industry, but I think she might be too smart for us here in the industry. She'd be more talented than anybody in this industry right now, except maybe, right on with Nico, dead on, dead race with Nico. But Allie is A1. So kudos to Allie. And I don't know your other daughter, but I'm sure she's just up there as well.
She's doing great. She's a therapist.
She's a psychologist. She keeps us all in line.
Perfect. My gosh.
And she's moving to Philly. She's moving to Philly in about 2 months. I'm a little bit concerned about that, but I think she'll be back.
That's hey, you got to spread the wings a little bit. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I'm with Dan and Nico Pompeo, great people from Architectural Glazing Solutions, ags-ca.com. We're missing Stacy, the other part of this equation. She's putting out fires, so we're thinking about her. But last question for you guys. What's next year looking like? It's funny. We just got out of Glass Build. Glass Build was amazingly popular this year. It was packed house. Everybody was really upbeat. There is a little bit of a worry about where the economy is right now, where it's going. The economists kind of, gave everybody a little bit of pause and said, let's be smart out there, start to conserve some cash, use your head. The waters are choppy. I think we all know that. How's things looking for you guys? I mean, because California is usually that bellwether. Things start in California, and I always say this on every pod, and I think almost things start in California and always move east. How you feeling about next year and beyond with the economy and the forecasting?
Well, I feel it works the other way. I think it starts the east and works its way to the west.
Interesting.
I could be biased now, but Max, it would be unrealistic to think that this pace in construction could continue. To me, it just doesn't seem, sustainable.
Sure.
The building index is something that I think we both pay attention to. That's been significantly dropping, and because we work on projects a year and a half, 2 years out with the design assist and working with owner developers and general contractors, we're seeing projects get shelved due to severe escalation in cost and obviously concerns. Interest rates are high. So to know that the economy, for at least my standpoint, has been going from 2009 to 2023 continually upward. We had our best years during a pandemic.
Right.
You got to think we're going to see a slowdown. I predict that it's already happened.
Yeah.
We've seen a drop off with residential sales about 20-25%. At least we have. Others I speak to have said the same.
Okay.
Our contract glazers, the ones that are established, that are aggressively pursuing every quote out there are busy. We have worked through 2025 midpoint as far as long-term projects.
Okay.
But we're going to have to buckle down. He's not seen a recession. He's been with me 10 years, and this has been a long run.
Yeah.
So I've seen 3 of them in my career, and I think we're overdue, and we just have to be ready. And we have always been good about reinventing ourselves and doing what it takes to stay busy and keep our customers, informed of what's happening next as well.
Yeah. And I think the nice thing about you is you're diverse. You have the different lines, and so you're able to, when one is up, maybe the other one might be down and vice versa. And, I think that's smart. Diversity right now is huge, just, making sure that you have not all of your eggs in one basket. So you can protect against that. And I think you guys do that. So I appreciate that insight, because it is, you do see further into the future than most of my guests. And so that helps give me an idea. And I think you're right. I mean, I think unfortunately, we're kind of long overdue. I think that COVID kind of just messed everything up and threw everything into a little bit of a muck. And yeah, things went crazy, but I think maybe we were headed towards finally cooling off, around 2020. And then it just kind of took a pause, went crazy for a while, just pent up energy. And now we're kind of due to get something here to, start to cool off a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, we'll stay busy. I don't expect record years, but for sure we have to buckle down. When you're an eat what you kill salesperson, you find ways to develop income. It's just a natural instinct.
And I think I'm going to use, from here on out, for dealing with, going forward, sweep aggressively. I think that's I think that's that's it. I mean, you know what? When we battle, we got to sweep aggressively. That's it. I think your dad nailed it, and you carry it on, and I'm taking it. I've taken. Randy Steinberg said he never looks back, only looks forward. And I've taken that, and I've lived with that to much where people are tired of me when they say, "Why won't you look back?" I'm like, Randy Steinberg said, "You never look back."
You can't change the past, no matter how powerful you think you are.
Exactly. So I've lived by that since that talk with him a couple of years ago, and now I'm adding sweep aggressively to that
cool.
that pantheon, because I think that's I'm a big keep plugging, keep chopping sort of guy, and I like that term, and I think that's something we all have to do. So no, this has been great. I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know you're busy, especially when, like you said, you're eat what you kill sort of guys. You have to hustle. Any day that you're not in the office is lost opportunity.
That's right.
And so you taking a half hour, 40 minutes to sit with me is awesome. I really, really appreciate it. Been with Dan and Nico Pompeo, owners of Architectural Glazing Solutions. Please check them out at ags-ca.com. See everything that they do. Good people. You'll see them most likely at the next Glass Build or whatever the next big event is, because they're always supporting the industry. Guys, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it, buddy. Good to see you.
Thank you. Okay. Time for a little bit of a catch-up. I've got Ron Parker, CEO of Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions. You can find them online at ballisticglassandarmor.com. And he might look familiar. And the reason I've got him back is Ron's a good friend. I had him on this podcast back in October of 2021. At that point, he was just your everyday leading consultant in our industry, helping multitudes of people out. But since then, a little bit of a life change. You've landed. And so that's why I was like, hey, this would be a great idea. The fact that I do consider you a good friend, it's time to update everybody on what's been going on in the world of Ron Parker, and very important stuff too. So Ron, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, Max. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you back, and I'm thrilled to kind of update everybody. So before we get into the whole update thing, not everybody saw that October 21 podcast. Just a quick little rundown. You've been in our world for a long time and held some major positions and made some great roads. But just a kind of an update about your path into the glass industry, where you came from and where you're at now.
All right. Started in the glass industry in a small fabricator in Oregon Glass at the time, and kind of was brought in there to try to help turn the company around. We worked at that for couple of years and got it turned around and took enough of the competition's lunch that they bought us.
Right.
And also got the attention of a couple other larger players in the same process. So shortly after the company was bought, I was offered an opportunity to join Cardinal, and obviously fantastic company with some incredible leadership with Roger and the old guard that's been with that group since the beginning, and just really outstanding folks. Was asked to build the factory in Galt, California to make low E.
Right.
We did that and ran that for about 8 years. Had a great team of people helping me at that factory. Had an opportunity to get back into the Pacific Northwest where I'm from, so moved back up there to run Vitrum Glass Industries in Langley, British Columbia. International travel on a daily basis, driving across the border.
Oh my!
Which is
That's
a whole
special
experience in itself.
Yeah.
Especially when the Olympics were up or about the same time. So at any rate, did that for about 4.5, 5 years, I think. And then was asked to go join the high-tech end of the business and get into the dynamic glass side. I was asked to go down to Silicon Valley and interview with View. At the time, it was Solidyme.
Right.
But understood the product and the plans and the launch, and was asked to help them scale from the laboratory in Silicon Valley to a full-scale factory. We ended up landing that factory in Olive Branch, Mississippi. A lot of incentives to get there for the state, and some other advantages to being that from a central standpoint, one of the largest distribution hubs in the country right there in Memphis.
Yeah.
So it worked pretty well from that standpoint. We built that factory and got it up and running, and scaled the dynamic glass from, at the time, I think it was about a 24 by 24 inch piece was the largest they could produce on the coater in California, up to a full 5 foot by 10 foot.
Right.
And larger. Did that. That was venture capital. It was supposed to be a quick, this is either going to succeed or fail quickly. And if it succeeds, everybody's going to walk away rich. And if it fails, then you just go find something else to do.
Right.
7 years later, it was still plugging away, but we hadn't seen that big exit yet. And once again, my wife and I decided it was time to get back to the Pacific Northwest where we're from. So headed back up there and started back in the glass industry up there in Vancouver, Washington, with a good personal friend of mine. Ended up having to drop out of the glass industry to do a health diagnosis of ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease.
Right.
Thought my story was going to end there.
True.
And it ended up not. Changed my life, my lifestyle, everything I was doing, and got a lot of the negative stuff out of my life and focused on yoga and meditation and a really healthy lifestyle with running and exercise, and got a bunch of weight off and got a lot of negativity out of my life. And for some reason, I ended up being one of the 40 some people now in recorded history who had ALS and didn't die of it, and actually reversed, and I'm healthier now than I've ever been. So truly amazing. Absolutely. Yeah. And coming out of that period of my life, trying to figure out, what do I want to do? Wanted to, it was an incredible gift to be able to go through that process and think that that's your future, and it's that dark and that bleak, and start thinking about life differently. Came out of that trying to find a way to make the biggest impact in a positive way that I could. I had a really good friend who was a consultant in the glass industry who suggested I should think about going into consulting. You might know who that is.
Yeah.
Max Perlstein.
Yeah.
So you actually helped me find the first couple of clients, and I think when we talked last, I was in full-time consulting.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I think you could have stayed in the full-time consulting, but then you landed upon Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions in Texas.
Yep.
And what's interesting is probably when you landed there, it was a product that was on the move and upwards. But since then, so many things have happened in our world. Not for the greatest, but for what you're making there, it became a very crucial everyday sort of product. So you went and you left being a full-time consultant to now being the CEO at Ballistic Glass, and so that's where you're at now. Yeah, and I'm actually privileged to be one of the owners of the company now. And when I joined, it was I started consulting here. It was just trying to get literally a phoenix coming out of the ashes. The company had suffered some very severe financial
issues with some embezzlement, and it was basically a patient on life support. There was a really dedicated crew here keeping it alive, but that's all it was. It was just barely alive. So we've worked really hard over the last 2 years with this crew. Great people, really dedicated to this, and a lot of support from the majority owner. And we've continued to double sales on an annual basis and get our feet back under us, and get back to where we're the company that we want to be. Or getting closer to that. We're still a work in progress and a lot of things that are changing and improving, but we feel like we're in the right part of the market at the right time, which is a little different than where I was in the dynamic space, where maybe a product a little before its time. Still a good product, but a product that's probably before its time. This, unfortunately, is, like you said, it's with what's happening in the world right now. The demand is just going up for these products. In the glass industry, I'd been around and knew of ballistics and people who were doing the stuff, and it was always something I just didn't want anything to do with. Little niche market where they're selling military, and when you sell the military and the government, they're in your shorts telling you what you can and can't do, and it just was something I intentionally avoided. But when I met this group and saw what they were doing, and a lot of the products, a big percentage of what we're doing is going into schools to protect kids and teachers and educators, and other applications where it's a life safety product, and done right, it's phenomenal what these products can do. And unfortunately, with the insanity in our world today, the demand's going up, and so we're here trying to meet that need, and see what we can do to help people protect themselves and their families and their businesses.
And that's huge. That's huge. And what's before we move on to ballistic glass, what's fascinating about you is this is what chapter 5 or chapter 6 now in your life. I mean, you've done the fabricated thing, you've done the manufacturer, the primary manufacturer, you've done the super specialty, electrochromic. You did the consulting where you had your fingers in a whole bunch of different things, and now you're in the ballistic side of things, and so that's why I loved you as a consultant, because you're a Swiss Army knife. There's nothing that you don't know, and nothing that doesn't scare you. But I love that you're an owner now, and a leader now in our industry again, and I think that's great for our world.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a really interesting process learning these products and technology. I'm still, I would say, a bit of a novice on the ballistic and security glazing standpoint, but I'm learning fast. Drinking from a fire hose right now, but and we're already in the process right now of working hard at improving these products, and bringing in some new materials and thinning the layups up, and making them lighter and thinner is really important, because it just expands the number of applications where these products can be used. Typically, a lot of this stuff is just so thick and heavy that it can't go into normal frames, and then it just ends up getting value engineered out of projects. So
huge. And I have it on the list to talk more about some of the new products and new ideas, but just an overview. So ballistic glass is basically your every kind of one-stop shop for everything in that ballistic space. So your UL 752s through now the things like the school glazing, which is crucial, to offices, retail. You're encompassing everything. So you're touching every part of that security protective side, correct?
Yeah, we don't do, it's interesting with the company name Ballistic Glass and Armor. The company used to do some body armor and some other armor products. We focus on glazing.
Gotcha.
And we do the frames as well. We do ballistic storefront and ballistic doors, and aluminum doors that we make whatever level of ballistic that is needed. So we do the windows and doors, but that's our main focus. We're not doing any other armor products at this point. So
gotcha. And so I think again, it's a growing product, and the one story that you told me that I want to get into now is how big it's grown and how important it is and how the product actually performs. And that was with a local optometrist. It was a building owner who inside the building was an optometrist. I'll let you kind of tell the story. It's fascinating. They made all the right moves. And yet I think when the audience hears the end of the story, they're going to be flabbergasted. But go ahead. If you could talk a little bit about the project there in Dallas with the eyeglass, sunglass frames and everything. I think this one will throw people.
Well, I'll start with a little bit of background. First, one of the things that we've introduced in the last 12 months is a program I call Forever Safe. So when I got into this product and recognized these are not, your typical $10 square foot products. These are very expensive when you get into these products. And the thing that was bothersome to me is if it ever did its job, yeah, you had a bad day. Crime occurred, somebody tried to attack, the glass did its job. That's a bad day. The positive thing is glass did its job, but now on top of the trauma that you go through, I got to spend that money again and replace the glass. So we implemented what we call Forever Safe, which means if you buy a piece of this product from us, a ballistic glass product, if it's ever damaged in an actual shooting or forced entry crime, we will replace that product for life. One time, I'm not going to replace the same window that gets shot out 4 times, but if it ever does its job and there's some conditions, we have to have a police report filed, we got to be able to take photos and videos and interviews, potentially bring it back for post-mortem analysis at the factory if we choose that. So we had that system in place. I got a call from a client saying, hey, I need to replace some of the glass I bought from you 2 years ago because we got attacked. Mm-hmm. Well, 2 years ago was before this was in place. And I just thought, you know what? It's the right thing to do. We're going to grandfather you in. And I told him about Forever Safe and he was thrilled. Turned out his facility is less than 2 miles as a crow flies from where my office is right here. So jumped in the car and drove over there. This is a gentleman who built a building. His 2 daughters are both optometrists, and he built a building for their office, and the other end's a dental office, and there's some other in it. So, but the optometrist office, his daughter's business, is extremely high-end retail. So they're doing Louis Vuitton and frames that are worth thousands of dollars, glasses that are worth thousands of dollars. The reason he put the glass in the first place was 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, his business was attacked. They broke in through the glass, broke a window, got in on a weekend, stole all the inventory of value. And because the building was breached, it was a stormy weekend, the building flooded. He couldn't get replacement glass for weeks. It was boarded up. He basically had to shut the business down for several weeks. Insurance claim, all of that. So intelligent guy, he said, I'm not going to let this happen again. He called us and we put glass just in his existing frames, retrofitted one of our lower levels of glass into those frames. So on the 4th of July this year, he and his 2 daughters were up camping at their cabin in northern Texas and got a call in the middle of the night saying, hey, your alarm's going off, somebody's breaking into your building. And they immediately panicked, start packing their stuff up to come home. And about an hour later, hour and 14 minutes exactly, the police called them and said, hey, we're on site and nobody got in your building. The glass is broken, but it's rock solid. You don't need to come. They unpacked and enjoyed the rest of their holiday weekend.
Tremendous. Yep.
When they got back and we found all this out and I drove over there, got to see that he's actually got surveillance camera footage. 2 cars come up, drive around the whole building, making sure nobody's there. They back in right in front, open the trunk, get out a sledgehammer, a crowbar, and a basket to carry all their goodies in. And 3 of them go at the building. They immediately attack the glass on the front, smashing it with a sledgehammer and can't do anything. Go around the side of the building, do it again, 3 more windows, 3 more windows. Can't get in. They get all frustrated, come up, throw the stuff in the trunk of the car and drive off. So the glass did exactly what it needed to do. These guys had no chance of getting into that building. So we, started the process of replacing for him under Forever Safe. He was very nervous about the building being vulnerable during that time. These guys who obviously knew the inventory was there and they knew what it was worth and they were committed or determined to get it. Yeah. They came back later knowing they can't get through the glass. Right. They can't get through the doors. These guys literally pounded their way through a concrete wall. So I mean, that tells you how tough this glass can be and what you can do with these products. I mean, you're going to have an easier time trying to jackhammer through a concrete wall than you are trying to break through our glass.
Yep.
And this is all on video. It's just amazing to watch. And it was such an issue for them. The owner literally slept in the building with a handgun until our glass was back in his walls.
Yeah.
And then he upgraded his alarm system and security. So if somebody tries to, carve through a concrete wall again, they're going to have another surprise.
It's amazing. It's at the end of the day, the glass was more powerful than the concrete wall. And the first time I heard the story, I couldn't believe it, and I'm a glass guy, and I'm like, hey, we did our job.
You've seen the pictures.
Yeah, and I'm heartbroken for him that here these guys somehow still busted through a wall. And it was cinder block. It wasn't like it was drywall. I mean, they went through bricks. It was incredible. But so, hey, glass is more powerful, and kudos to you. Your Forever Safe came through, and it tells a story. And retail theft is a huge issue. There's no question. More and more are into that, and so that's why it's crucial that products like yours come to play. So kudos on that. But a crazy end to that story that they went through the wall. That is amazing.
We literally can. I mean, our lowest level glass has passed the new ASTM standard for the active shooter standard at the highest level, level 8, and it's 3/8 of an inch thick. Max, I grew up splitting firewood on a farm. I know how to swing a split maul, and I can deliver more force with a sledgehammer, I think, than most people.
Yeah.
I thought for sure I could break through that glass. And we've got a video that we did to demonstrate the power of the glass versus the Nashville shooting and some looking at comparing it to film. How does it stand up if it's not been shot? How does it stand up if it is shot? After we finished that filming, I figured I could take the sledgehammer and beat through this. We'd had 2 guys with a 10-pound sledgehammer beating on it until one of them had an asthma attack. I took it. I couldn't get anywhere. And then finally we got a pickaxe with a straight blade pickaxe. And the 2 guys, after one recovered from his asthma attack, went at it with that just because they're mad they couldn't get through.
Yeah.
Still couldn't do it. When I finally got the pickaxe into the glass and thinking, wow, I can finally cut a big enough hole to reach in and open the door, I couldn't pull it back out. 3 of us couldn't pull it out. The only way to get the axe out of the glass was to take a sledgehammer on the back side of the door and hit the axe and smash it out of the glass, but you couldn't make a hole. So we really have products. The industry has products to offer retail.
Yep.
They have products to offer residential. They have products to offer schools that can stop the breach of the building. And one of the things we're really learning now and trying to help people understand, this isn't a simple product. It's like saying, oh, I've got money invested in a mutual fund, so I'm going to have a good retirement. Well, maybe you will, maybe you won't.
Right.
Saying I have ballistic glass, I'm safe. Well, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. What level is it? What's the attack method? All those things. Right. So what we're really trying to simplify things and get people to realize what I suggest is you have break-in prevention glass, so I can stop anybody from breaking in. I don't care what they bring. Without a tank or a truck, you're not getting in.
Right.
I can go to that plus handgun protection, which will stop any handgun, including dirty Harry and a 44 mag. Or I can take it all the way up to rifle glass and stop an AR.
Right.
There's a big impact on cost as you do those things.
Sure.
So what happens too frequently is people just think, oh, I need the best. I need there's issues with that from a cost, a thickness, a heaviness, the frames are custom, all that stuff. In most cases, even in the active shooter cases, especially the schools, if you can keep that attacker outside the building, people aren't dying because they're getting shot through a window. They're dying because the attacker gets in where people are trapped, and that's when the carnage occurs. Right. So there are applications where you need to stop a bullet because somebody's got to be behind the glass and they have no choice. The secretary or the person who is allowing people to access into the school, they're stuck there, they can't. But everybody else who can get away quickly, you just need to keep the attacker out, even if they're able to punch through with a bullet here and there. The fact that they can't get into the building is what's really going to make the difference.
No doubt. And
really
everything,
trying to help people understand that.
Yeah, and everything you're talking about. Again, I'm with Ron Parker, CEO, Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions, and you can find them online at Ballistic Glass and Armor, all one word.com. And he mentioned things like the Nashville shooting and some videos. You can find that on there, along with all the details he's talking about. And again, it's part of that education on what you need. And we're going to get back to that. I always mix things up. I don't think I was doing this back in 21 when we did the podcast, but I added probably about a year ago the fun question to help break things up. And for you, it's an interesting one because you never take time off. So those rare times that you actually take a minute off. I'm curious, what's the dream vacation for Ron Parker? If you ever get to take any more time off.
I don't know. Is my wife listening or is this,
well, she's gonna listen. We know she's gonna listen. She listened to the first one, and I believe she liked the first one. She gave me good reviews.
She did, yeah. No, we've been married 41 years, so
Love
we're ready to be with her. Honestly, I really enjoy Alaska, and if I had my choice, I'd probably be out on Admiralty Island in Alaska someplace, and away from anything remotely close to civilization.
Love it.
And just be able to enjoy nature. That's my perfect spot.
Perfectly said. And again, you're a runner. You meditate. You take things in. So that's a perfect spot for you. There's no distractions.
Yeah. I actually did a grizzly bear hunt on Admiralty Island years ago with my bow and arrow archery hunt, and I would love to go back. I'm not a big hunter anymore. That's kind of out of my system these days, and mostly just don't have time. But the pristine ecosystem up there, it's hard to even describe when you can go someplace like that no humans stepped foot on for hundreds of years, potentially, if ever. And I mean, you literally walk into the surf and pull out this particular type of seaweed that's washing and just eat it right out of the salt water, and
incredible.
And pull mussels right off the rock and throw them in a pan. It's just phenomenal, that ecosystem.
I love it. And I love it now for the second podcast in a row. I have archery talk. One of my guests last month was Merv Campbell from OmniCubed, who's a big time archery guy. Yeah. Who would have thunk 2 months in a row we're getting archery mentions on the From the Fabricator podcast? But I love it. And I love the vacation choice. Very, very cool. Again, with Ron Parker, CEO, Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions. Find them online, ballisticglassandarmor.com. And a couple more questions for you. So we've talked about, schools and retail, obviously needing that protective. I think that's, obvious. I think things started with Sandy Hook, and then Nashville really put things into a whole nother light. The retail side with pretty much the riots in 2020 kind of got that going. But what's next? Because I think that's always the thing that we have to keep in mind. And I know you guys have worked on some things, or at least I'm hearing things. What's next for you and Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions coming down the protective pike?
Well, we've got a new product that we're rolling out right now, and I think it's gonna have a big impact. I think that's something that's needed and literally doesn't exist right now to our knowledge, and that is that we have a new all glass door, very similar to a Herculite door with a top rail and the bottom rail.
Gotcha.
Operating on a pivot that is full level 3 handgun glass. So it'll stop everything up to Dirty Harry's 44 mag. And it has the same break-in prevention properties that all of our glass does. The unique thing there's two unique things about this product. One is it's literally a space C-suite stuff. I mean, it's what you would expect to see in the most expensive lawyer's office in New York City, or in the CEO's office in any high rise.
Right.
So it is a beautiful door.
Nice.
It is incredibly robust. It's downstairs in my lobby right now, cycling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, opening and closing to see, does this thing last? And I crossed 1,500,060 cycles this morning. And it's still going strong, showing no sign of slowing down. So we got a door that'll operate millions of times with zero maintenance. It's beautiful. It's secure. It's something that I think the market has needed. Generally speaking, when you get into those kind of security products, you get the feeling that you're in a prison or, Fort Knox or the military. It's not attractive, and it's not aesthetically pleasing. We have the ability now to do that. We're partnered with a couple other companies that have some very exotic materials that are typically only available to the military, that we now have and can make available to the commercial market.
Right.
Both in terms of transparent products and in terms of opaque things that can be inside doors, furnitures, podiums, and provide full AR protection in a very light, thin format. So there's a lot of really advanced materials out now that I think are going to change how some of these products work and how easy they are to apply to more situations and conditions, more applications.
So an all glass. So back to so it's an all glass door. So the typical all glass entry. Curious though, weight wise. I mean, you say it's 1.5 million cycles. I mean, does this thing take massive Hercules strength to open it, or is it how is it to open and close?
Well, that's the other unique thing about this is that it is. I would tell you, I think it's the easiest door I've ever seen to install.
Nice.
and to perfectly align.
Nice.
The one door panel on a 36-inch door for us on this is over 400 pounds.
Okay.
I'm not a door installer.
Yeah.
I've installed that door myself from scratch in 2 hours and had it perfectly installed and aligned. After it's installed, with one tool, I can install it and adjust the jam clearance, the footer, the header, the floor, door scissoring, if it's a double door set, all with one tool after this heavy door is installed and in place.
That's
so
nice.
It's easy to install. It's very easy to adjust. It's so robust. I don't think you're ever going to have to do anything to it ever again. But the one wear part in the door that I don't know that it's ever going to wear out, but if it ever does, it's literally 20 minutes to replace. I can send a replacement part to somebody, 45 minutes, you slide it off, put it back on, you're done. And so it's very, very easy to maintain and do the installation. And that's where we've had trouble in the past with these products because they're so heavy.
Yeah.
We've done some doors like that in the past, and they've been miserable failures because the hardware's not designed to support that. And the difficulty of adjusting them and getting the clearances all right was just really, really problematic.
Yeah.
That's all been solved now.
That's why I asked, because it's the weight, the weight just is always the bugaboo in so many different areas within the world of ballistic. And so with the door, you have it solved. And then, when you and I chatted before we pulled this whole thing together, you have some other new materials that you're playing around with to address things like weight and some of the other kind of openings in the fire rate in the ballistic space, but with other similar worlds.
Yeah, one of the things that in the ballistics that's really challenging for people to understand is the idea of no spall and low spall.
Yes.
So all of the UL 752 standards, when we say UL 752 level 1, which is a 9mm handgun, 3 rounds in a 4-inch triangle and a 12x12 sample, you've got level 2, 357 Magnum, level 3, 44 Magnum, then you get up into rifle glass. All of that under UL assumes no spall. And what that means is when the bullet hits the attack side of the glass, on the other side, the safe side or the occupant side, if particles come off, the bullet doesn't go through, but if particles come off, that's called spall. Low spall means there's going to be some spall coming off. So it's fine for applications where you're not got somebody with their face 3 feet behind the glass or less.
Right.
For normal applications, that's fine. If you're in a situation where the occupant has no choice but to sit right behind the glass, a bank teller window, a military vehicle, a armored car, that type of stuff, that has to be no spall. And the way you make ballistic glass no spall is there's a piece of polycarbonate laminated to the safe side. So when the bullet hits and that glass all starts to fracture and expand and no particles can come off. The downside to no spall is polycarbonate scratches easily, and it's damaged by common glass cleaners.
Right.
So we really discourage people from going to no spall because you're going to put it in, and 2 years later, with everybody touching it, and pushing on it, and cleaning it with the wrong rag, or worse yet, they use the wrong cleaner and it immediately destroys it. You got a super expensive piece of glass you just ruined. So what we're working on now, and the first tests on it 2 days ago, and they passed, is a way to have a no spall ballistic product that does not have exposed polycarbonate that can be damaged by cleaning or improper cleaning or contact with abrasives.
Nice.
And we found a way to do that 2 days ago that I think as we've got more research to do. But that's one big area that we're working on. How can we make a low spall product behave like no spall, which again expands the applications, but it's an even safer product that way. The other one that we're working on really is trying to make sure that we get a security product that is also fire rated.
Right.
So we've got a lot of applications, especially indoors, where you need that security in a school, but you also need fire rating in that. So we're working on with a couple new product or new materials to make our construction pass fire rated as well. So we're early in that process, but I have high expectation of success with that.
Love it, love it. And we need to cut this to give to NGA, because you explain low spall and no spall better than anybody I've heard yet. Because that I like that explanation that you had, and that is a confusing thing for people. So it makes sense to finally try to address it the way you're addressing it. And nobody likes plastic. It's a necessary evil, but I can't stand plastic.
It is, yeah. And a lot of the times when you see some of these security products, it is literally, just all polycarbonate, like a 1.5 inch thick polycarbonate. And I'll just tell you a quick archery story since we started with some of that. But when I was at VIEW, we were actually doing dynamic glass mated to about 1.25 inch thick piece of polycarbonate for pharmacy windows and bank windows. And we had an extra piece left over, and a bunch of us just went out in the woods and started shooting it with every gun we had. And it was amazing how much damage that took with almost no visible damage at all from all the different weapons we were using. The one weapon, we were at 300 Win Mag, we were using 30-06, we were everything you can imagine. You know what did the most damage? My bow and arrow.
Yeah, scratching it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we need ballistic glass and we need archery glass, apparently, because if I were going to try to break in, I'd use my bow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just in Atlanta for Glass Build, and the stadium, there, beautiful stadium. A good portion of it has that plastic on it. It has the, I guess it's the ETFE, that plastic. And it makes me crazy. And I just, I walked past it with my daughter and I said, 10 years, that stuff is going to look horrible. I can't stand it. But in your world, unfortunately, the polycarbs are part of the process because of certain things that you mentioned, the no spall, low spall. So if you come up with these new ways, hopefully we can get away, from that, and be more on the glass side. I like it. I like it. Couple more questions for you. One of being more on a personal side, we both have an appreciation for Bob Maltby, and you mentioned to me today that you said, hey, before I come on the podcast, I want to put him up as a guest. And I think you're right. I'm gonna work on. I know you're right. I'm gonna work on getting Bob on and some of the old guard in our industry to share the knowledge. But give you a real quick angle on Bob. This is a one of a kind sort of guy.
Bob is a jewel of wisdom. I don't know anybody. I mean, I have a lot of my really close friends are in their 70s, 80s. Bob's in his 90s. This is a man who's been in the glass business since glass was poured on a big flat stone and rolled out and polished. I mean, he remembers this.
Yeah.
So he's been around since floats started. He's made the unique claim to having broken more glass than any individual on the planet. And he can tell that story. It's really amazing too. But Bob is actually a physicist. He's trained in physics, and he's the only person in the glass industry I know who literally studied physics. And he's taught me so much about the industry and about glass. But more importantly, Bob has taught me so much about being a good human being. The man grew up in the Depression. He's been retired from the glass industry for a long time now, and he's still every Saturday night writes a story about lots of different things, and just shares it with a group of friends, and we get it every Saturday night. And just a tremendous man, and it just makes me think about all of the knowledge and the wisdom that resides in his brain, and how this industry is going to be lesser when Bob's no longer around. And he's a very present guy. He knows at his age that his time frame is limited, but he's still very positive and still trying to help and still learning. The man's constant reading and doing all kinds of things to keep his mind sharp. But it's kind of why I reached out to you about it. I think we've got several people in the industry who are reaching that sunset years. And that's the brain trust of this industry, because we haven't done as much training and education and research of I mean, true technical experts, like was done at LOF, I think was the days when we had Bob Maltby was involved in a lot of that, Greg Carney, you had Bob Spindler, you had Bill
Lignell, Bill Lignell.
So there was just a bunch of those guys that I think are the brain trust of this industry, and they're getting up in years. We need to find a way to pull that knowledge out, transfer it to others in this business before we lose it, and respect it, because it was hard earned.
No, it's a good call, and it's something I'm going to add to the mix here in the coming year. Getting people like Bob on, and that old guard, reunion folks. There's so many good ones here, and good call by you. And I appreciate the idea. And the only thing I'll quibble with is, if my dad was still alive, he would back me on this. I broke more glass working for him for 1 week. The 1 week I worked for him way back when I was 16 or 17 years old in the warehouse, then Bob probably broke. And that's when my dad said to me, you're an office guy. He forced my brother. My brother had to work in the warehouse for years. For me, I broke enough window glass, 24 by 36 window glass. I was breaking it all over the place.
Well, so Bob was running a float line and crushing everything for a week while he learned while he was trying to solve a problem, but he was literally given permission to crush everything on a float line nonstop, 24 hours a day for I don't know how long.
That's
until they solved the problem.
That's a swear word for the floats, crush. That's you don't want to ever hear that word when you're afloat. That's for sure. Oh, this is great. This is great. So one more question for Ron Parker, CEO of Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions. You can find them online, ballisticglassandarmor.com. So I always ask, 2024, I always ask about the following year. How's it looking for you guys? How are you feeling about the market? What's on tap for Ballistic Glass and Armor Solutions next year?
I think everything we're seeing is just continued growth of these products and continued growth of our market for this company. I think in general, I would expect that there's going to be some drawback on the glass industry. I think we're seeing, particularly on the commercial side, but on residential as well, with interest rates and the rest of what's happening with the economy. And it's a wild card year. Who knows with the election and things? I mean, nothing's predictable. But I think what is predictable is we don't have a solution in sight for the gun violence that's happening and the rioting. I think that's going to continue to get worse. So these products are just going to continue to increase in demand. Unfortunately, I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. To me, the commercial IGU and residential side of it and some of that, it's a tough thing to try to forecast right now with so many variables that are just wild cards. One thing can happen and flip the whole thing in so many different directions. So I think my bet is 24 is going to be an improvement over 23. Not a lot in terms for the overall industry, probably close to flat, but there are benefits, and I think I saw this in some of what I saw from you and others at the Glass Build. The positive side of some of that slowing is that it's also easing the supply chain issues that we all fought for the last 2 years, and some of the logistical problems and the labor problems and that sort of stuff. So there's pros and cons to it slowing a little bit. I don't anticipate a big crash or a big drop, but I think a little bit of slowing is probably not necessarily a bad thing.
Good. Yeah. Well, I think you're right. I mean, the biggest thing I think you're right about is the unknown. I mean, 2024 especially with the election, it's just it could be so bonkers. And now we have, more global strife, to play into. So a lot going on there. And just, I always say we're a resilient industry and we have to stay that way. And obviously you're making products that are hugely important. And like you said, unfortunately of that case, but we need them, and we got to keep people safe. But this has been really interesting. I appreciate you doing it. This is great that 2 years where you were 2 years ago, which was fantastic, and helping many people out, to now doing this and still helping many people out by providing them that safety. So kudos to you, and thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor. I appreciate it, Max, every time.
You bet. Thank you. See you next time. Thank you, Ron.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Thank you to Nico and Dan at the beginning of the podcast, Ron Parker at the end of the podcast. And thanks for listening. Of course, this is brought to you by myglassclass.com and also the brand new myglassfab.com. Check them out online 24/7. Great training from the National Glass Association. At this point, I normally talk TV. I'm struggling. I'm really struggling. I'm running out of ideas. I put on my blog, hey, anybody with TV ideas, shoot them to me. Jack Reacher, the new Jack Reacher, though, will be on Amazon in early December. I'm looking forward to that. I'm wrapping up things like Daisy Jones and the Six right now, which is pretty good. My kids got me into that. But I'm hurting for TV, so I don't have anything great. If you have ideas, like I mentioned on the blog, shoot them to me. I like what I call treadmill shows that I can watch on the treadmill and not feel like I'm running because they're so good. They're intense, maybe a little action. It takes my mind off of the huffing and puffing of the treadmill. But thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for the support. It was great seeing everybody at Glass Build. Appreciate everything, and I will see you next month.
Oh, the music is stopped.